Pancreas. Pancreas. So many snacks. So little time.
Buckle up, everybody. We're going to talk about Venom. Welcome, friends. LostScarf here, and it's time for the vlog. And first up, wearing the Kirby gym shirt, because I went to the gym, then I went to see the Venom movie, so I need to represent real quick. There you go. And yeah, right there. Check out those Kirby guns. You gotta represent. Funny thing, before we talk about Venom, when it comes to the gym, I don't feel uncomfortable. Like, I've got right there, like it is a bowl full of jelly up in here. And I got this, but I'm not self-conscious about it because I'm in the place where I'm trying to get rid of this. Like, I'm where I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm where I'm gonna build this up. Like, I'm at the place for it. I don't care what anyone thinks or sees because I'm gonna make it better there. That's how I feel at the gym. Anywhere else on the planet, I'm self-conscious as balls. I'm at the gym, I'm at the beach, I'm at the pool, I am just out and about. Anywhere where the clothes is just a little too tight or I'm not wearing a lot of clothing, self-conscious as balls, because I'm not improving myself there. But the gym, I'll let it all hang out. I'll let you see it, because it ain't going to be there eventually. That's at least how I feel about it. Other people, the other way around, they're very self-conscious around people who are like really buff or they just have really nice bodies and everything. I don't. I'm just happy for them that they're chiseled. And those people who are not, they're working on it too. I'm happy for them too because they're trying to get there. Nothing against you if you're not trying to do exercise or any of that stuff. I'm just saying, as far as those who go to the gym, I'm happy for them. I'm happy people are trying to get healthy. That's why at the start of the year, I'm happy to see so many people at the gym. And then I get depressed when less people go to the gym because eventually, New Year's resolutions eventually fall off, which is just too bad. But it is what it is, and that's how it be. Real quick, when it comes to fitness, there are three factors to it. You've got genes, which you can't do anything about, and if you understand as best you can do something about it. Like for me, I got Islander blood, Mexican blood, Spanish blood, all that stuff. But I got Islander blood, which means naturally I get bulky. That's a thing about my bloodline for sure. You can see, like if you ever saw my dad, he's a very big, thick guy. He is all muscle, but he's very stocky muscle. He's just like, what's a good example? I can't think of, like maybe, okay, random examples you could go with would be like Anger from Inside Out. Like he's just a short guy, but he's just all muscle. He's just all that. That's what he is. That's what my dad is. Another example would be like the Thing. He's like the Thing, but if he wasn't, made of rock. That's what my dad is. He is just all muscle, but he's very small, stocky, so like the body just naturally goes towards it. You've seen Samoan people. Like, if you've seen Samoan people, that's how the body just shapes out like that. That's a lot of Islander blood like that. And so I have that. So that's genes for me, where naturally I can get big very well. Is the skinny part that's not so easy. The Rock is also another example of the kind of blood I have, where you can get to that kind of chiseled state as well. That just takes a lot of work, because The Rock works out every damn day. A lot. Like, he works out so many hours, it's amazing. The Rock is a good example of what you can do if you're a workaholic on things. That's genes. The other one is, just exercising. And so, exercise, of course, whatever you do, there's bad exercise, there's good exercise, the quality of your workout will affect how well you get built up. And the third one is where I struggle, is eating. So it's three things: diet, exercise, and genes. These are the three factors. That's what they really are. And diet is the hard part for a lot of people. I can't remember what it was. Like my boss, he does CrossFit every day for like 3 to 4 hours. He's ridiculous. And he exactly measures out his meals on Sunday. He spends about 5 hours making all of his stuff for the rest of the week. And he's like, when it comes to a six-pack, it's like 70-80% is diet, 20% is exercise. That's the way he puts it. I'm like, damn. And like, yeah, like just the science of just eating right really helps out. And of course, you see just like celebrities or whatever, when they're working out, they'll eat just like a lot of protein and things like that. And just understanding that stuff. So what you eat does affect what you become. And I like bread, which is not helping, obviously. Like, I should get like more protein if they're bulking up, but I should be eating like a lot more veggie and stuff like that. And just being better about slim down. But it is what it is, and I gotta keep working on it. So Venom review. Let's talk about Venom. So I spent 5 minutes on fitness. So Venom, I Venom, I don't get the bad grade it's getting. Okay, actually, I do get it. I get it. Okay, if you're not a comic book person, it's like a 5 or a 6 because there's some things about it just, even on like level 1, just cursory, surface level looking at the movie, motivations of characters, things like just why things are done or just how things work out. It's kind of by the numbers, and some things just needed more bacon, don't make any sense. So for them, it's like a 5 or a 6. For comic book fans, it's a 7. It is a straight up 7. It is a good movie to watch. It's an entertaining movie to watch. But again, if you think about it a little bit, it's going to fall apart. Now, if you're a Venom fan, it's an 8. It is definitely an 8. I don't think a Venom fan should give it a 9 or a 10. They got to be honest. It's a very enjoyable movie if you're a fan of Venom, but it is not a perfect movie at all. Like, it was sold out. I was in a crowd of people, and when stuff with Venom was going on, people were just flipping out, and it was awesome. But just giving any thought to him, like, yeah, there are just some things that just aren't so great, which is unfortunate. I don't know if it suffers from being a PG-13 over an R-rated movie. I don't feel like R just makes a thing better. I think it has to it has to earn the R. Deadpool deserved the R. Logan deserves the R. I don't remember if the Punisher movies were R or not. If they're not R, it doesn't make any sense to me. It should be R. But for Venom, I don't know. I don't know if R would have made it better, because R would just be more gore, and that's it. And that's not enough. Like, I don't know. It maybe could have done better with gore, but for me, I didn't feel like it needed to be gory. But there are points where people are getting hit with things that should be blowing them to bits. They really are. You've seen the trailers, you know Riot's in the movie, and Riot does blades a lot. And Riot straight up just, in the trailer, just hits a bunch of people with his blades. Nobody gets cut in half. They just fall over. You assume they're dead, but there's no blood anywhere, and they just fall over. It's really weird. It is very odd right there. And for Riot, you get why an R would be necessary. For Venom, it's not necessarily needed for Venom, because Venom's an anti-hero kind of character. But if we get a Venom 2, and there's Carnage, it might do well with an R, because Carnage is definitely an R-rated villain. There's no way you can do a PG-13 with him. Then again, in this movie, a lot of people do get killed. Not by Venom. Venom does some killing, but whenever he eats people, it's off camera. You don't necessarily, like, they could have done the full eat on camera, honestly, because it would just be a full envelop eat. But yeah, if he just took a whole, like, half a chunk out of somebody, that would be interesting. But in a movie with Carnage, you would probably need an R. For the second movie, you would need an R for Carnage. For damn sure. I hope it gets a sequel. It's a very enjoyable movie. Tom Hardy's amazing. Tom Hardy plus Venom is the best part of this movie. The first 1/3 of the movie, like the first 30 to 40 minutes of the movie, is setting up, and because of that, it's the weakest part, because you get to see some symbiote stuff, which is cool and all, but there's no character to it. It's like there's just some evil thing. But once Eddie and Venom come together, the movie is very enjoyable. It becomes a good movie. The last 2/3 of the movie are very enjoyable. The first 1/3 not so much, because it's setting up. And the action stuff is just good. Something I'm happy about is you don't get lost in the action. This is very important with action movies. If you can't tell what's going on, it's not a good action movie for sure. You can tell what's going on. They do a good job of Venom. You can tell where Venom is when they're doing things. Even when it's Venom versus Riot in the final battle, for the most part, you can understand who's who, because they do have different color schemes, and they do enough to show you where Eddie is and where the other guy is. And so that's good. But there is one scene, I think, where you can't tell who's who for a moment, and that's because it's just too dark. But for the most part, you can tell who's who, and that's a good thing, because that's a big complaint I have with some action movies, is you can't tell what's going on. That's because they're cutting a little too much, or they're just too blended together. A real big problem before, like, Transformers movies are very bad at this. All you see is a bunch of mess of metal, you can't tell what the hell is going on. That is something Transformers just does so poorly. Luckily here it's done well, you can tell what's going on, and I'm happy for that. So it is enjoyable with the action. There is a good amount of it, not a ton, but a good amount of action in the movie, and the funny stuff is pretty funny. I enjoyed the comedy of the movie for sure. It was just, it's a solid 7. It's a solid 7 movie for dang sure. 8 if you're a Venom fan, and probably low if you're not a comic book fan. But if you're watching this as not a comic book fan, I don't even know. I honestly feel like critics just shouldn't even bother. I don't know, like, Infinity War, let's deal with that real quick. Rewatched it last night. Infinity War is an incredible movie. It's a really good comic book movie. If you're a fan of Marvel, it's even better. And it's just such a solid movie. That is a 9. Like, that's a 9 movie. There are little things that'll make it not a 10 because, well, 10 has to be like perfect or close to perfect, I guess. You could argue for a 10 if you want, but it's definitely a solid 9, Infinity War. It was really good. Some things could be better, but it was a really good movie. And a lot of critics just didn't like the movie. They're like, they didn't understand what's going on and these things and that. And it's like, that's because it's a crossover movie. The Avengers movies are crossover movies. And to be honest, it could be argued that yes, they should do a better job of explaining characters, but there's too many characters to do it. So it kind of does have to have a prerequisite with it. Going to a different movie, My Hero Academia, that movie, I saw that movie. They tried to establish the concepts of quirks. They tried to establish Midoriya and All Might, like why they're so close together, why they're so attached to each other, and they use scenes from the show just to explain things, give you background. And I think it does an okay job. It is very hard to just make people who don't know what's going on, who don't know the subject matter, to care. That's the hard part. It's always going to be hard for that. Because I don't know if it's because comic book movies rely on the fact that people should know these characters, or not. Because you can also argue the Batman movies, where the Batman movies, we keep seeing his parents die. We know they die. I don't need to see it over and over again. We've seen it so many times. We know that's the motivation. Just move on. It's something that I didn't get. Like, people were mad that the Spider-Man Homecoming skipped Uncle Ben and skipped just him getting bit and everything. I'm fine with that because we've seen that so many times already. We've seen it twice in a decade already. We don't need to see it a third time. I was glad they didn't do it again. There are people who are unhappy about that. I don't agree with that at all. We've already seen it so many times. I'm glad we just get into it and it gets going. And Spider-Man Homecoming is a really good movie. And I swear, if the next Batman movie shows his parents dying again, I'm gonna lose it. I'm losing it a little bit. Batman's my favorite. I'm tired of seeing that part. I want to see more about Batman. I don't need to keep seeing his parents die. Like, come on, that's ridiculous. And so, I get why critics are making that criticism against Avengers, but I don't think it's valid because it's a crossover movie. It's a crossover movie. It's what it is. It's like seeing the Flintstones meets the Jetsons, and then, like, there's not enough good explaining what these guys are and all this. So it's like, you gotta see the Jetsons and the Flintstones before you go see the crossover. Like, you just have to. It doesn't make any sense to not get that. Like, you can be a fan of one and then hope they introduce enough of the other one so that you get it. But it's a crossover. The crossover is relying on you having seen the previous stuff to get what's going on. It is very much a sequel that relies on you have seen the prior movies. Also, it's the third Avengers movie after all, so it is relying on you having seen the other movies. In anything, it is always going to be weird when you go into a later movie having not seen the prior movies. That's how it's always going to be. So that excuse, I feel, is valid, because it's not like Avengers Infinity War is a standalone movie. It really isn't. And so, yeah, I don't get the complaints on that one. And really, I feel like you should just have someone who knows what's going on with that. And this comes into an argument with, well, we're talking about reviews now all of a sudden here. This is our big topic today, apparently. It's the same thing with video games and movies and all that with critics. Like me, I could review things, and I feel like general reviewers are not a bad thing to have where they see everything and you get their perspective. But the problem is when their scores are aggregated towards things. This is the big problem with aggregation, with Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic and stuff like that, is people who don't care about a subject matter and people who love a subject matter are weighted evenly. And so their scores are weighted evenly, and then that affects the Rotten Tomatoes or affects Metacritic. And that's not necessarily fair, because what the balls? Basically, it's like, well, it's not fair if you use Rotten Tomatoes as your only litmus. If you use it as your litmus test, Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, it's not fair at all. That should be something that you consider, but if it's the only thing you consider, then it doesn't work out. Because you're going to get a lot of people who don't understand, so they don't like the movie. Same thing goes with just Rotten Tomatoes, where you just have a bunch of people where it's a very high score because only the niche people saw it. And so you see it's very high score. And that also isn't so great. And that's why you should always, of course, consider your critics. Like, I really like Jeremy Jahns. He's very general. He didn't really like Venom all that much. I really liked it a lot. And so I'll see what he thinks of movies. And it's like, well, basically what he thinks of movies makes me go, do I want to see it right now or do I want to see it a little bit later? That's what happens when I see someone like him. When it comes to Angry Joe is very much a comic book person, but he and I have different motivations on things. So sometimes when I see his reviews, I'm like, well, that's what he thinks, and I don't know. Maybe I would really disagree or agree with him. Then I'll go and see the movie. I'm like, okay, I really disagree with Angry Joe. I found myself disagreeing with Angry Joe more times than not. So really, he's not a very useful critic for me because I don't really agree with any of his stuff. So I'm like, well, that's not a very useful reviewer for me. And the same thing can be for just video game stuff, where what good is a bullet hell person doing at reviewing platforming if they're not really a platform person? What good is that? And that's why niche reviewers are pretty useful. And that's why I like me as a recommendation person. It's not necessarily meant to toot my own horn, but it's that because I like so many different genres, I feel like I could be a good just middle ground on a lot of things. And that's why I like doing the one shots when we did them. Was like, well, I like a lot of things, so I could say whether I like it or not. And I find myself very useful for that. But we don't do it a lot, so but I think it's good to have like a general reviewer, but don't make them your end all be all. Also have like niche reviewers as well. And just really have a couple reviews to make you consider whether you're going to see it or not, really. I saw the reviews for Venom, like, wow, a lot of people don't really like Venom. I see Jeremy Jahns, he's like, it's alright, it's not the greatest. I'm like, okay. I see some more reviews, like, people are just like, it's not the greatest. And I see it because I'm like, alright, I'm still on the fence, I'm just gonna go see the movie. It doesn't cost a lot for me. Some people have to pay like $12 for a movie ticket. I only have to pay $4.75. That's not bad. It's across the street from the gym, so alley-oop one into the other, so I can do that. And I thought it's not a great movie, but it's enjoyable. And talking about motivations, that's one of the problems with the movie is it doesn't do enough to explain symbiotes. It doesn't do enough to just explain some things. Eddie isn't a straight man in this movie. Venom doesn't explain things to Eddie at all. Venom is, what's that word? Like, untrustworthy narrator? Or something like Venom can't be trusted in this movie because Venom, he has his own agenda with things, and so you don't really get a lot of information. You get little bits here and there, and there's enough to understand certain things, but you don't get the whole picture, and that can be a complaint for sure, is there's not enough to explain things. There's not enough to give you the motivations of things, and that's something that does hurt the movie. Apparently, Tom Hardy complained there's like 40 minutes cut out of the movie, and that might be why the movie doesn't feel as well-baked as it could be. Because it feels like there's some motivations missing, some reasonings missing, that could really explain... Some things are missing that could really explain some things in the movie later on, or motivations that come up. There's just stuff missing. And because of that, the movie is not as great as it could be. So I say it's a solid 7. And just reiterating, solid 7. Big fan of Venom would be given an 8, and then people who don't like comic book movies would probably give it a 5 or a 6 for sure. Anyone who rates it lower than that, I don't even know what business they're doing seeing the movie and reviewing it, because holy crap, there is no way you're going to have any interest in this while even watching it. Just pass it off to someone else. Anyone who gives it a 9 or a 10, they just really wanted a Venom movie. That's really what that is. Like, woof. After credits, they tease the sequel movie. If there's going to be a sequel, they're teasing that. And then they also showed a couple minutes of Spider-Man Into the Multiverse. And I don't know. Everything I see of this, like the trailers and the 5 minutes at the end of this movie, I both think it's going to be interesting. I also think it's going to be terrible. I know it's not going to be terrible. Like, I know that it's either going to be okay or great. Like, visually, it keeps going between great and awful. It just doesn't look, it just looks weird. And so it's back and forth for me. But as far as the movie as a whole, it might be very enjoyable, but not really great. Like, not very good movie. Or it could be a great movie. I really feel like it'll be middle to great. I don't think it'll go to awful. There's no way it's going to be in awful territory. But, especially as Spider-Man property, you have to go out of your way to make it terrible. But, yeah. And as far as Spider-Man stuff with Venom, considering Spider-Man, in this universe, Spider-Man and Venom are not in the same universe. Well, they might be, because this takes place in San Francisco, not over in New York. So, I want to say the specific place. Can't remember what specific place Spider-Man's in, so I just said New York. I don't know if he's in Brooklyn or Queens or what, but, actually, yeah, he's somewhere in New York, because Captain America says he's from Queens, I think. And then, or Spider-Man says he's from Queens. One of them's from Queens, and then maybe the other one's from Brooklyn. I don't remember. But in Civil War, they talk about it. But, they might be in the same universe. And so Venom gets into Eddie, but Venom doesn't have any of the Spider-Man influence. Venom's full on black with Shamu eyes. Like, that's what Venom is. He doesn't have any of the spider stuff on him. And whenever he climbs around, it's more just multiple tentacles grabbing other things, or one tentacle attacking a person, but no, like, web kind of situation. Nothing that says Spider-Man, which is good, because if they did anything that says Spider-Man, it wouldn't make any damn sense. So at least there's that. But overall, good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I really did. As far as vlog goes, I guess we talked about critics and reviews and all that stuff. Like, it's important. Like, reviewers and critics, they have a place in the world. They really do. They're very useful. But their word is not God. Their word is not the end-all be-all. And I just don't 100% agree with Rotten Tomatoes as your only litmus. Also, Metacritic. That's a problem with, like, was it Total War? Was it Creative Assembly? They felt like their Metacritic score is very important to them, and I feel like that's not a good idea. I don't really think it should be the most important thing to them. It should be just making a good game, especially getting, like, if they can get playtesters, it's really, you want to get people who are in your niche and people who aren't in your niche and see what both like and see what you can do to maybe bridge that or whatever to just get more people interested. As far as Creative Assembly goes, Romancer 3 Kingdoms is coming, and I can't wait for that. 3 Kingdoms Total War, that's going to be awesome. Gonna be Shoe. Shoe's my jam. Shoe has always been my jam. There's the woo in the way, but I'm all about the Shoe. Also depends on which version of Romancer 3 Kingdoms you do, because they can all be, like, the Shoe and the woo, well, I'm talking about the Shoe and Wei are, like, the main guys, and then the woo's just there. There's people who like the woo, and I don't know why, but they're just there. It's all about the Shoe on the way. But, yeah, I can't wait for that game. Anything talk about with the channel or anything right now? Not really. The new Kirby podcast working on right now. Just channel stuff still going. Apollo Justice is gonna come. Oh, November. So, and we don't do horror games in October. We do horror games in November. Like, we record in October for November for the channel. Because we do NopeVember. That's what we do. Like, everyone's doing horror right now, so we do horror in November. And we're going to do Fear, the original Fear. And I cannot wait for that. Fear is a really good psychological horror game. It's so good. It's going to be ugly because it's an old game at this point, but it's such a good game. Maybe there's a visual mod for the game, probably. There has to be. There has to be a remaster mod for it. And the gameplay is amazing. The enemy AI is incredible. And I don't know how it's never been replicated. The AI in Fear, they figure out where you are, and they try to find ways around to ambush you. Also, enemy spawns are not necessarily random, but it can be anywhere in given areas. So your enemies can be anywhere, and they will be smart about how they fight you. They try to use tactics in fighting you. They don't just come straight at you. And that has always been the greatest thing about Fear is psychological horror and just really good enemy AI. And for some reason, games just have never been really good at that. The only other game I can think of that had good enemy AI was like Time Splitters 2, and that was in the freaking GameCube era. That was pretty good AI. You could play just against the AI and have a lot of fun with Time Splitters, for damn sure. So that was another good one. But in this day and age, I don't really enjoy fighting AI in anything, really. Except HOTS. HOTS AI ain't bad to fight against. That ain't bad, but in FPS, I don't find AI all that fun. They're just not very good. But back in the day, they weren't. This isn't nostalgia talking. It was definitely good AI back then. But that's it. That's it for the vlog and everything. Basically, we talked about fitness a little bit. We talked about Venom, and we talked about just reviews and reviewers and critics and all that, and how they can be useful. At least how I see it. As far as anything political go, we'll probably talk about politics next week because the Kavanaugh vote is Saturday. And just about, the FBI investigation, there was nothing there and all that stuff. That was not very great. And just, the only thing I wonder is, the whole Kavanaugh vote feels like a sham. And is this how the right felt about the ACA? Did that feel like a sham to them? I wonder about that. Just like, are we at the worst we've ever been politically? Or is this just something that comes in cycles? That's what I wonder. But that'll be something we can talk about next week. Especially there's one thing I want to touch on, that is McCarthyism with Trump. I feel like he's McCarthyism, but it didn't fail this time. That's what it feels like with Trump. But that's for another time. So there you go. That right there is the vlog. I had fun talking. Hope you had fun watching and listening. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Let's come by and see you next time.